Hello everyone and welcome back to another Wa Social video review. On this Shiok Saturday, I'm reviewing the Le Mans 1952 automatic chronograph from German microbrand Vintro. So Vintro states that the Le Mans 1952 chronograph that we have here is inspired by the great history of the art of watchmaking, reinterpreted and perfectly equipped for the daily demands of everyday life. So let's check it out. So first and foremost, in case you're wondering, Vintro is a relatively new watch microbrand from Germany. It's a portmanteau. The brand itself, Vintro, is a portmanteau of the words vintage and retro. So they seek to offer watches that are full of vintage and retro styling. Let's start off with the specifications for the Le Mans 1952. So first and foremost, I'm pleased to announce that it uses a domed sapphire crystal. So a domed sapphire crystal, is pretty much virtually scratch resistant. So you can't, I'm using my nails to try to scratch it. It's pretty much scratch resistant. It also comes with layers of anti-reflective coating inside, so you don't really get that reflections when you're taking photographs or you're telling the time, etc. Surprisingly, it's also rated at 100 meters of water resistant, so it's pretty good. You don't have to worry about the watch coming into contact with water. Don't worry about being caught in the rain with it, under the tap or whatsoever, unlike you would for a real genuine vintage watch. Now, onto the movement itself. So as you can see, the movement is gorgeous. It actually uses Vintro actually uses the Seagull ST 1940 automatic column wheel chronograph movement here. So for those of you that know your movements, the Seagull ST 19 series of movements is actually based upon the legendary Venus 175 chronograph movement of O. So the Venus 175 chronograph movement actually powered your Breitlink's premier chronomet chronographs in the 1950s, 1960s, before as a company Venus sold the blueprints for the 175 chronograph to Tianjin Watch Factory, which today produces the Seagull watch movements. So some specifications, again, is an automatic column wheel chronograph, as you can see from the rotor here. It has approximately 36 hours of power reserve. It has beats at 21,600 beats per hour and has accuracy of about 20 seconds per day. Now, before you dismiss it as just a cheap Chinese chronograph, bear in mind that this is based upon the legendary, as I mentioned, Venus 175 movement. So it's essentially a Venus 175 chronograph movement, but automatic, modified in automatic fashion, as well as updated with certain modern features. And I must say that it's pretty cool too. You can see that the finishing is quite pretty to look at, and I'm quite surprised that they even at this price point they even managed to include like some pelaging on the rotor here. So that's good for them. Again, I think it's a great value for money. This watch is about 450 euros after the promo code below and after excluding VAT. So if you are not in Europe, you get this watch at about 450 euros. This is an automatic column wheel chronograph for 450 euros, and I think that's pretty amazing. So let me just show you the chronograph action here. So I start the top pusher and see the chronograph function in action. So let me see, I can hold it closer to the camera. So on the right, you have the chronograph sundial. You can see that it's slowly tracking the elapsed time on the right sundial. The left is actually a running second sundial, so you will know that the watch is fully wound and running. Yeah. Bear in mind that this is not a flyback chronograph, so you would have to press the top pusher again to stop the chronograph movement, and then the bottom pusher to reset it back to 12. Yep. So again, the main calling point of this watch that it features an automatic column wheel chronograph movement. Yeah. So moving on to the strap itself. Now Vintro states that the watch will come with not just one, not just two, but actually 3 strap options included in the package. So you get a leather strap like the one that I have here. This sort of, you can choose, I guess, but I guess most people opt for this sort of vintage leather strap. It states that it's a genuine leather, handmade. I'm not quite sure which part of it is handmade, but it states so. It comes with quick release as well. So it comes with not just this leather strap, but also an additional NATO strap and additional metal bracelet as well. So I think again, for a watch that's only 450 euros, it's quite value for money for you to come with 3 different strap options for you to jazz it out a bit. And again, with the quick release spring bars, it will be very easy for you to swap your straps around. That being said, out of the three, strap options, I definitely prefer the Vintro watch on this, vintage leather strap. It just fits the vintage dial of the watch the most. So yeah, but overall, when it comes to specifications, I must say I really think that it's quite bang for buck. For a watch that's only 450 euros, you get Sapphire Crystal, you get 100-meter water resistant rating, you get anti-reflective coating, you get a lovely, automatic column wheel chronograph movement that is based upon a legendary movement that is used, can be found in vintage Breitlings and other Swiss watches. And you get not just one, not just two, but three straps in total. So I think it's quite bang for buck on paper. Moving on to design itself, like I mentioned, Vintro 6 offer vintage watches, watches with vintage styling. I meant. So when I first laid eyes on the Vintro watch, I mean the vintage cues is clear. It immediately reminded me of vintage chronographs of old from like I mentioned brands from Breitling, Universal Genève, Longines, etc. There's a strong retro vibe to it due to several factors. Firstly, as you can see, the dial is actually not white but instead of a cream or off-white color, so it gives the impression of a patina dial or aged dial. Secondly, there's both a tachymeter scale in blue on the outskirts of the dial, as well as a red telemeter scales, on the inner portion of the dial. So this sort of aesthetic, right, like incorporating two different sort of the tachymeter scale and the telemeter scale is quite rare in modern watches. Yeah, it's a really retro sort of styling to include both scales. Next, the simplistic nature of the batons indices reminded me again of a lot of the vintage chronographs of old. Specifically, if you know your watches or your hot horology watches, the Vacheron Constantin less historic chronographs, you find that it's an almost identical layout when it comes to the numerals and the baton applied indices. Yeah, so clearly I can see from the dial that Vintro has taken inspiration from some of the most iconic chronograph watches of the vintage world, and it shows. But damn, it is quite a beautiful dial, isn't it? Now moving on, even though most of the watch is vintage looking, there's a few modern touches as well. For starters, let me see if I can catch the light here. You get polished rose gold plated dolphin hands, which you won't find on vintage watches. Vintage watches tend to use baton hands or sword hands, slightly more simple aesthetic. Here, Vintro decided to go with polished dolphin hands for a bit of a dressy feel. Next, there's also a sunburst texture to the chronograph's sub-dials. So then you guys can see, but actually has a slight sunburst texture that differentiates it from the matte cream dial. Yeah, so I appreciated this contrast of textures that is available on the dial. Next, there's also a blue painted second hands and a blue painted hands for the both chronograph sub-dials, which I think complements the blue tachymeter scales on the outskirts perfectly. So yeah, overall, I really do like the aesthetics of the dial. I mean, it really screams vintage. It really does, and it's really, I would say, quite a beauty to behold. So what do I not like about the aesthetics of the watch? The Vintro sent me this rose gold version, and this rose gold version, comes with comes rose gold plated. Again, let me try to see if I can show it to you. So it's actually quite polished, quite glossy. Switch over to the case side. As you can see, the finishing on the case of the watch is quite glossy and quite polished. And to be honest, I'm not a fan of that. Obviously you won't find a vintage watch that has such a high polished finish. Again, I must say, I think this is a misstep by Vintro. I don't agree with their glossy finish on the rose gold case. I much prefer their. I think they make, okay, to their credit, they make a stainless steel variant as well. So without, I think it's a matte stainless steel or polished stainless steel variant. If I were you, that would definitely be my pick of all three variants available. The last one being a rose gold variant of this. I don't know, man. I just think that the polish finishing is a bit too glossy for my liking. It reminds me of the cheap fashion watches from Daniel Wellington or Movement or Michael Kors. Just not my cup of tea, and to be honest, I think it ruins the vintage vibe a bit. Even if they do want to make a yellow gold, variant of the watch, I think they should have made it like a matte yellow gold to sort of mimic the gold filled or gold capped vintage watches of old. I don't think they should have made it like high polish here, because it really just, in my opinion, in my honest opinion, I just think it cheapens the look of the watch a little. It doesn't feel like you're wearing a it reminds you that you're not wearing a vintage watch as well. Yeah, but again, you know, they are not the only brand that does this. I think this is a subjective opinion. It is my honest opinion, but it is a subjective opinion nonetheless. You know, many established brands as Frederic Constant to use a rose gold polished case on their vintage inspired watches. So yeah, that is really up to you. On to the chronograph pushers. So you can see on the case side, there's sort of block chronograph pushers here. Again, maintaining that vintage styling. They are quite well sized, you know, easy to press. You can hear the response as I push it again and I reset it. You can hear the very nice response that it's give. So yeah, the crown is well sized as well. Hand winding it is a blast. No problems with that at all. So now let me give you a quick wrist roll. Alright. So let the camera focus on, there you go. So giving you a quick wrist. Oh yeah, I forgot to mention it comes with a, you know, gold plated sign buckle as well to match the case. So, you know, giving you a slow wrist roll. Look at that. I do think it's quite a handsome watch on the wrist, don't you think? You know, again the dial is chock full of vintage styling. So I would say overall, I ultimately quite like the vintage aesthetic of the Vintro Le Mans 1952 chronograph, in particular the dial. I think the dial is chock full of retro goodness, and it really conjures to my mind some of the most iconic chronographs of, you know, brands such as Breitling or Vacheron Constantin. My only quibble, like I said, it is a shiny gold-plated case, which is very obvious on the wrist, and I'll opt for the stainless steel variant instead. But overall, I think that the Vintro Le Mans 1952 chronograph is definitely a great value proposition. For one, you're getting an automatic column wheel chronograph based upon the legendary Venus 175 movement for just about 700 Sing dollars. So like I mentioned, after the promo code below and after, you know, excluding VAT if you don't reside in Europe, this watch comes in at about 450 euros, which translates to about 700 Sing dollars. I think I've seen other micro brands selling mecha quartz chronographs for more. So for the value, the automatic column wheel chronograph movement that you get, I think this is quite value for money. As a lover of vintage watches myself, I absolutely love the vintage cues and styling of the dial. It is very unique, in my opinion, due to the incorporation of both the tachymeter scales on the outskirts and the telemeter scales inside. Yeah. But if you're interested in this watch or in any other watches of Vintro, you can use the promo code WASOSHIOK to enjoy 10% off all of Vintro's watches on their web store. So after the promo code, the Vintro Le Mans 1952 Chronograph Automatic that I have here can be had for just 453 euros or 735 Sing dollars excluding VAT. If you love its vintage styling, but find the price tag still a bit too high for micro brand watch, there is also a mecha quartz variant available at a much lower pricing. I think it's about 200 euros after the promo code and excluding VAT. Yeah. So this is Vintro's first, watch, maiden watch offering, and I think they're off to a great start with this Le Mans 1952 chronograph. And I can't wait to see what future designs they have in store. Alright, so that's it for me for today. If you enjoyed this review, please do subscribe to the channel. And again, if you want to learn more about the watch, do read the full written review over on the website www.wasoshok.com. Over there, I go into the watch in depth. This is more just a hands-on review for you to see the watch in a video and more interactive format. But over on the website, the written review is where the details are at. And again, if you want to get yourself this watch, do remember to use the promo code WASOSHOK for 10% off all Vintro's watches. Alright, that's it for me for today. I'll see you in the next video. Have a great day. Ciao!